Alright, so here we have a bit of a different video here. Today we have actually a mini PC to test on the channel. This one has the Intel N97, as you can see right here. And with that being said, it's a quad-core 2 GHz chip. It can boost up to 3 point something gigahertz, I think. I don't even remember. Let's see, N97, yeah, up to 3.6 gigahertz, as you can see. It is a 12-watt chip, but with this mini PC, the GMC Tech, I believe it is, if you go into the BIOS, you can actually up it to 15 watts, and that's what I have done to get the absolute maximum performance. So default TDP is 12 watts, but on certain mini PCs like mine, it can be up to 15 watts, just in case you ever buy one of these, just so you know in the future. It has a maximum of 16 gigs of RAM, but in my current configuration, it is 12 gigs of DDR5, running at 4,800 megatransfers per second, I believe that is. Don't quote me, I could be wrong. The N97 comes with built-in UHD graphics with a whopping 24 execution units, as you can see here, with 24 TMUs, DDR5. It has a maximum boost clock of 1200 megahertz, and I mean, there's really not much else to see there. It's 10 nanometer. That's about it. And then, yeah, it's got the latest drivers, 1-10-25, 256 gig SSD with a USB hard drive for the games. And yeah, that's about it for the specs. So I reckon we get into the games, shall we? Okay, starting off on a relatively not too hard to run game, but hard to run game for a little mini PC like this. Here we have BeamNG.drive. This is pretty CPU dependent because this is a very physics heavy game. If you don't know what BeamNG.drive is, it's a soft body physics simulation kind of game where basically you crash cars, vehicles, do all that fun stuff. So it's very reliant on the CPU, but also the GPU. So in this case, we are actually GPU bound by the iGPU, which, not really surprised, the iGPU is not very powerful. But to me, the fact it can run this game at about 30 frames per second, at least with the stock pickup truck, is actually not that bad. Because some of the other computers I do have, I will do videos on eventually, they can't hold 30 frames for the most part. They're sitting in like the mid to low 20s. So considering this computer was only $120, $130 and it can run BeamNG.drive, granted this is a very basic map with a very basic vehicle, but it can run it at about 30 frames with just one vehicle, and it's definitely far from the worst. Now granted, everything's on the lowest settings, which I will show you here right now. Options. There you go. As you can see, everything's on lowest. Everything's disabled that can be disabled. So yeah, it ain't looking pretty, but it's running, right? We are dropping from 30 though, unfortunately, so it's not all the time it's above 30, but for the most part it is above 30 or at 30. As you can see, we are hitting GPU limits still. Not too much of an issue. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this in the intro, but I probably should mention it now in case you were to buy one of these systems. Some of these mini PCs with this chip have a BIOS issue where the GPU actually gets limited to 1000 megahertz instead of 1200 megahertz like it's supposed to be running at for this chip. But I have verified that the BIOS on this system is perfectly fine. It is not limiting it to 1000 megahertz. It is running at the full 1200 megahertz. So this thing has every chance in the world it can get to perform at its best, I guess you could say. So that was BeamNG.drive. Let's move on to the next game, shall we? Okay. Take two. I'm redoing all of my recording because I just realized my bitrate was set to 2000 kilobits per second, so it looked like absolute dog shit. Now that's up to about 7500 kilobits per second, so now it should look about equal to what I see for the most part. Maybe, you know, compression and whatnot, it's not going to look quite as good. But trust me, it's not going to look much worse because this is 720p using low settings, I believe it was. I forgot to look at it, I'm sorry. Forgot to look at the settings. But this is Farming Simulator 2019. the reason why I didn't do 1080p is because, well, the game just straight up wouldn't let me. I tried setting 1080p 2 times, the game restarted, and it just reverts back to 720p. Don't know why, never had this issue before, but I guess something about this game and this computer don't like each other, so... Anyways, as you can see, the GPU is actually not hitting 99% to 100% usage all the time, which signifies to me we either have a CPU bottleneck or we have maybe a RAM bottleneck, like bandwidth, which is entirely possible. It is only single channel RAM after all. Now then again, it is DDR5 running at 4800 megatransfers, megahertz, whatever you want to call it, per second, so it's not slow RAM, but it's only single channel, and iGPUs rely on system memory because they don't have their own dedicated memory. So it's one of those two things. As you may also notice, that temperature is getting a little bit high, hitting 86 degrees C at times. Now when we do hit 86 degrees C, the computer actually does thermal throttle, and that limits us to about 12.5 watts like we're hitting right now. Once we hit that thermal limit of about 85 C, that TDP will not go any higher. Now yes, I did turn up the TDP to 15 watts, but thermal throttling, it doesn't matter. It's not going to go over that. The reason why I think you can adjust it up to 15 watts is more so like a burst to kind of, a burst of power to kind of get whatever you're doing going, or, just a little boost of power real quick to make it snappy, Not for a consistent, sustained load of 15 watt TDP. It's not really made for that. This isn't a gaming computer after all. So, either way, it's not that bad. I mean, it's definitely a playable experience. It may not look good on the eyes, but if you can be willing to sacrifice some performance, you could probably crank it up to 1080p if you can get it to stay and keep medium settings, and it won't look that bad or run that bad. Now this is kind of a worst case scenario. I do have a bit of vehicles around here with silage because this is a multiplayer save I used to play a lot. So there's kind of a lot going on around here. So if you have a smaller farm or something, you're not going to have any issues running this game. So with that being said, let's take it easy. Let's try another easy to run game, shall we? Before we get into the hard games. Alright, next up we have Half-Life 2 running at 1080p, the first game that runs at 1080p. Besides BeamNG.drive, but that was windowed mode, so it doesn't really count. Everything is cranked up to the max besides anti-aliasing, which I'm going to set to 4x, because anti-aliasing is very intensive. And when I tried before, setting it to full on 8x anti-aliasing, it cripples this poor little computer into almost single digits in some areas. So, a nice, I guess, compromise you could say. So let's see what we get now with only 4x anti-aliasing. Now in this area we're getting this set in the 70s. iGPU is pretty much maxed out at about 97-95%. Then it drops a little bit. I don't know why it does that, but I think it's just a weird game thing. Is this guy still chasing me? Wow, he's still chasing me. Can you get a fucking life? Here, hit me. Get out of here. Okay, whoa, that's a lot worse than I expected. So this is one of the most intensive areas, I believe, in the game. Because there's a lot going on here. We're in the 20s. Wow, that's rough. As you can see, GPU usage is maxed out. Are we really using 1.2 gigs of VRAM? Is that true? Okay, so just to kind of do an experiment here, let's go ahead and turn down, actually no, let's turn off anti-aliasing. Let's see how much of a difference that makes. So about 21 frames to, let's see, what do we get up to here? Perfect 60 frames. So that right there is a good demonstration of how intensive anti-aliasing is. This game is older than me. So yeah. Now, when you look in a different direction, you get the maximum frame rate, which this supports, which is 120 hertz out, which is what I'm currently using. My monitor can support up to 144, but I believe this computer's HDMI ports are limited to 4K 60 or 1080 120, I think. Don't quote me. But either way, we are running at a solid 120 frames here. Oh, little stutter. Don't know what that's about. But either way, Half-Life 2, perfectly fine, perfectly playable. As long as you don't crank anti-aliasing up to max, you can crank everything else up to max, and it'll be fine. So with that being said, maybe let's try some GTA 5. Let's start pushing this little computer. Let's start pushing it, I think. Okay, so here we have a bit of a surprise. Here we have GTA 5 running at 800 by 600. Everything at the absolute lowest settings. If you didn't know, the low settings in this game are just normal. So everything is indeed at the lowest settings, running in DX11. Alright, let's get started, shall we? As you can see, CPU is pegged at 100%. Honestly, I'm not really surprised. I was kind of expecting the CPU to be at 100% the entire time. Quite honestly, because it is not a very fast quad core. It is a quad core, but it's not a very fast quad core at that. But still, it's running the game. I have seen a bit of videos. Oh, the stutters. If you go down this way, because there's a lot of buildings, you will get a lot of pop-in. So I'm just kind of curious to see if that's going to happen. Then I'm going to kind of go around different parts of the city real quick and see what happens. As you can see, there is a little bit of pop-in. Bit of stuttering, not bad. Okay, honestly, I was expecting it to be worse. I saw benchmarks on the N100, which is actually slightly less powerful than the N97, which is what I'm testing here, because Intel being Intel, you would think the N97 would be the least powerful out of the N100 and N150. Nope, the N97 is the most powerful of the three chips. Don't know why, but that's just what Intel did. Makes sense, right? And the N100 was suffering a lot from pretty bad popping, but honestly, it's not that bad here. In terms of, buildings popping in and stuttering. And stuttering isn't that bad. It's definitely tolerable, I would say. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. But as you can also see, we are hitting that 85, 86 degree C temperature limit there. So the whole 10 watts or so is probably where it's going to stay. Unfortunately, I mean, if it ran a little bit cooler, it might be able to squeak a little bit more FPS out of it. But still, 40 plus FPS most of the time. This is honestly playable. I'm kind of shocked. I didn't expect it to run this good. I was expecting similar to what I saw in the other benchmark videos, where it's just constant stuttering, constant pop-in, and an unplayable mess. But no, this is actually relatively playable. If you can deal with 800 by 600 lowest settings, this is playable. I'm kind of surprised. Let's just kind of go up the hill here real quick, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah, and as you can see, as we're getting away from a lot of... Oh, I didn't even know this was here. Wait, what? Since when is this here? I've played GTA 5 since the Xbox 360 days, and I never knew this was here. Anyways, so yeah, as you can see, as we get away from other stuff, we do get into the 50s and 70s, as you did see for a split second back there. So, overall, a pretty darn unexpected result. It is playable. So, yeah. One thing I will say before I move on to the next and probably final game, because I don't want to make the video too long, is if you get into a big gunfight or a lot of explosions, I could definitely see the frames dropping into the 30s. So yeah, just do keep that in mind, but overall, it's playable. I'm surprised. Let's move on to CS2, which I'm just going to tell you now. It's not good. It's not good at all. You'll see why in a second. Well, I sure was not kidding about CS2 not looking or running very well. As you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, this is 640 by 480. I think that's what it says. I honestly can't read it on my monitor. It's so pixelated. I'm pretty sure that's 640 by 480. Move over to advanced video. As you can see, everything is set to low. This isn't gonna go well. You know what? Just to give us the best chance possible, put it on performance. Make it look even worse. Give us something playable. Oh, that looks like shit. Just give me something playable in terms of frame rate. With that being said, let's try and get into a match. Alright, well, here we have CS2. 640 by 480 on the lowest settings. Not looking too good. Not looking too good. I mean, at least the frame rate isn't that bad. It's really not that bad. Nah, playable. It's not playable. Frame rates, okay, I guess it could definitely be. Wow, why is the sensitivity so low? Anyways, it is not the worst frame rate I've ever seen, but yeah, visual quality. I suck at CS:GO. Visual quality is not so hot. I mean, it's yeah, it's not looking too good. Trust me, it does look worse than what you're seeing through the capture card. It looks worse on a bigger, like if you're watching this on a phone or like a maybe a tablet, it won't look as bad as you may think. But when you're playing this game on a 24-inch monitor, it looks really bad. Like, really bad. It also doesn't help. I can't aim for shit. I can't play this game for shit. Oh, I just got 2 kills. Alright, never mind. Yeah. It's not playable. If you ever buy this computer, or this computer, like the spec I should say of this computer, don't play CS:GO on it, or Counter-Strike 2 I should say, because it's not gonna run. It's not gonna run well at all, as you can see. Yeah, this is I mean, hey, it's running. You gotta give credit where credit's due. It's at least running the game. Now, you can't really see enemies that far away. I mean, the enemies beyond like 10 feet look like... I can't even see them. Honestly, I couldn't really see them on my screen. It was just like 3 pixels by 3 pixels. I can't see them. I literally can't see them. Yeah, like... This, yeah, nah, I mean... Yeah, I can't play this game. You can't play this game like this. It's not playable. Sure, the frame rate is... Oh, the frame rate kind of disappeared. I mean... Yeah. I think that's enough CS:GO. I think that's enough gameplay. And yeah, okay, well, I shouldn't have even tried that. I think that's enough gameplay for this thing. I think we're going to do a conclusion here. You know, could have definitely been worse. Definitely could have been worse. Alright, well, that brings me to conclusion time. What do I think of the Intel N100 with Intel UHD graphics with 24 execution units, because they couldn't even give the graphics a proper name? I think this is actually a really good computer for the price. Considering this computer goes for about $120 on eBay, or about $140 to about $180 on Amazon, it's really not that bad for the price, considering you can play some games on it. You can play GTA 5 on it, granted at the lowest settings with 800 by 600, but it can run games. Some fairly modern games like FS19, which came out in 2018, so not a new game, but it's not old and it still looks okay. And CS2, which came out not too long ago, I want to say a couple years ago at this point probably. I mean, playing CS2 is a bit of a stretch, more like walking, not running CS2, you're walking CS2. Frame rate was awful, as you saw, the visual quality was awful. But if you're looking for a cheap computer to just do basic web browsing, basic YouTube watching, stuff like that, it's a really good machine, I will say that. I've been using this computer for about 4 hours, just doing basic, YouTube, Google, all that stuff. It's flawless. It works perfectly fine for basic tasks like that. And as you saw in this video, it even works for some light gaming. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you were interested in these types of videos. And, yeah, if you like these kinds of videos, feel free to let me know by leaving a like and commenting. And I'll do more of these types of videos. So with that being said, See you in the next video. Goodbye.